Jermaine suggested that we should start with a band meeting, and you're the manager. And I went, okay, right, here we go. And I just went, okay, band meeting. Let's start with a roll call.
Hey, I'm Sean Hill, a DJ and radio host on The Edge, and I love stand-up comedy. A couple years ago, I faced my biggest fear and did my first open mic. I was hooked. In May this year, I'm doing my first ever full-hour show at the New Zealand Comedy Festival, and to be honest with you, I'm absolutely shitting myself. So come with me as I chat to the biggest comedians in the game looking for advice, wisdom, and let's be honest, a good yarn. Welcome to the Comedy Club.
You did recently, granted, you're doing this duo thing, and then you start doing stand-up in Auckland. You're finding your voice, and then you've kind of gone overseas. And is that where you met Taika and Jermaine and Brett, or did you know them from New Zealand? How did you start doing the Flight of the Conchords radio thing, and how did you end up as part of that?
So I knew them briefly in New Zealand, in one of the comedy festivals. They're Wellington-based, and they came up to Auckland. And Jermaine came to one of my recently granted shows, and he was a fan. I went and saw Conchords, and then we all went and did Edinburgh, and including Taika, who came with Jermaine and their sketch duo, The Humour Beasts, which was one of my favourite shows over there. So that was the first time I really caught up with Taika, watching him and Jermaine act together, doing sketch, doing the stuff that I want to do, of course. Of course, it was my favourite show, and of course, Flight of the Conchords was on then, and so that became everyone's favourite show. I was doing my one-man stuff, my oddball stand-up at that point. Brett was, he was teching my show. So we helped each other out. We couldn't afford techs and things. We couldn't afford people to flyer for us, so we flyered each other's. The Naked Samoans were there as well. So that was the big group of us, the Kiwi contingent, and we really had each other's back. And that's when the Conchords really took off. Their show was on at about 10:30, and every comic that finished their show, especially the headlining shows, which were on around 7 or 8, they'd finish by 10, and then everyone would just go to the Conchords show. It was just on at that great time, and because it was music, word got out straight away how good they were. So it was literally packed every night, and that's when the BBC found them. This guy, Will Saunders, and he said, hey, I love what you're doing. Can we make a pilot for like a radio show? Jermaine said, yes, of course. He already had some ideas. And then he contacted me. I was just in a flat down the road. We're all staying in little flats in Edinburgh. And he said, do you want to play our manager? We're going to do like a pilot for a radio series based on our band, And I said, yeah, of course, I'll be your manager. And I sort of came up with this name, Brian Nesbitt. And then I met Will, and he's just got this little mini disc recording device. And we went up to, I think it was my flat. It might have been Jermaine's, I'm not sure, but was one of these tiny flats, and we just sat in the kitchen. I remember vividly sitting in the kitchenette, and I'm on one side and Brett and Jermaine are on the other, and Will is like off to the side with his little microphone, and we just did it. And Jermaine suggested that we should start with a band meeting, and you're the manager. And I went, okay, right, here we go. And I just went, okay, band meeting. Let's start with a roll call. And I just for some reason decided to do a roll call. And we just did it. I don't know where that came from. I think it came from my past back in soccer, when the manager used to do roll calls when I was 9. Of course, I was in the army, so we did a lot of roll calls there. I love the uselessness of an authority that has no idea what he's doing. So the magic came together, and then I remember going on stage with them, because Will wanted to record them live on stage as well. So I came out on stage one night. I had like a bad suit on, and the place was packed. They didn't know I was going to come out. I had a gig like 3 doors up in a smaller venue, and I'd done that, and my 12 people had seen my show. But then I came out on stage before them, and with a microphone and playing this character. So straight away, I just went into this role of this manager, and I said, okay, you've had a good laugh, but it's serious time now. We've got a band, because the whole thing was that they were, a serious band. They were a novelty band from New Zealand, and they weren't a joke. So I was sort of like telling everyone to just calm down, please enjoy this, and I brought them on stage, and of course that's all in the pilot for the radio series, and out they came, and the rest is history.
Is it true that when they were initially going to do the show with HBO, that HBO wanted a different Murray, and then they pushed for you? They were like, no, we've got to have Rhys do it.
That's not quite right. No, I don't think they wanted a different Murray. They didn't know what the show was, and so the show was thrust upon them, the idea, and it came with James Bobin as the British guy who co-created it and also directed the show, and he was steadfast in positioning me in as the role, as well as Jermaine and Brett, obviously. So because I'd already done the manager in the radio series that we started with in the UK on the BBC, I was known as Brian Nesbitt back then. So when they recreated the show, changed it for America, essentially the same kind of thing, two guys trying to make it in the Big Apple. They were essential in wanting me to be the manager. And so, I mean, I really felt in those early days when they went to America and they were in talks to get a TV show, I thought I had no chance of being involved in this, because I thought surely my role was I kind of got it as their mate, and we had a laugh with it. And then when they hit the big time on TV, I thought, well, they're definitely going to get an American, to play a manager. You'd have, when you went over there, you'd have a manager. I wasn't sure how they were going to sort of like write me in, but that's when they did the clever thing of using the consulate, which was certainly not used, in the radio series. I was just a guy that managed a pub in Taranaki, the Taranaki Tavern, and I ended up in London with them. So yeah, they cleverly devised a way of positioning a New Zealand in New York by me running the consulate there.
The more I hear about that show and what happened in the early days of it, the more I'm just shocked that it's like so famous now and it's like so iconic. And it was just like a lot of it initially, right, with the radio show was improvised stuff, and then it was like, and then it found its way into this TV show, and then it's become one of the biggest New Zealand comedy shows ever.
Yeah, and of course it happened so quickly, and we were just so running before we could walk. I mean, it was my first acting job on television. It was, it was my first time in the States. It felt like a dream. It all happened so quickly, and we kind of had each other's back. And because they were running it, the Brett and Jermaine, they had so much control, and then they got their mate Tyker in to help do. He directed some and wrote some as well. Then it was kind of like our little gang, and we couldn't believe our luck that HBO, with all this money, was trusting these random dudes from New Zealand to put something together for them.